I try really hard to have a nutcrackerless season as much as.
Hi, everyone. This is Cindy.
Hi, everyone. This is Jana.
Welcome, welcome. Yeah, welcome to another episode of Close Encounters. We all took a little bit of a break, but we're really excited today because we're talking about a discipline that, I came very late into sort of being involved because I have a music background, but dance really came to me in the last 10 years more as an audience. And then I really fell in love with just admiring dancers and dance companies and this art form. So today we call this episode Dance Demystified because I think there's a lot of sort of this cloud around this discipline in our world and in the biggest sphere of the commercial world of what it means to be in this industry and what are the challenges for us, particular in our arts world, from the traditional ballet to even contemporary dance to kind of everything in between. And today we are joined by Aakash Odedra, the founder and artistic director of Aakash Dance Company. And then we have another guest that will be joining us very shortly, Virginia Johnson from the Harlem Dance Theater. Because of we're live and we are, it's reality of the world of zooming in. She's stuck in New York City traffic, but let's get started. I mean, Aakash, tell us a little bit about yourself first.
So my name is Aakash Odedra. I'm based in the United Kingdom, was born and brought up in Birmingham and live in Leicester. So Leicester is my home. I have a company, and the company started off with two people. I'm a soloist, trained in mainly Indian classical dance of Kathak and Bharatanatyam. Then I was kind of spotted by Akram Khan, who became my mentor. And then there was a solo created on me called Rising, which is a 4-part solo created by Akram Khan, Sidi Larbi, Russell Malafan, and myself. So that is what kind of kick-started my solo career.
Very nice. Very, very nice. Very nice. And
very impressive.
It is very impressive. It is very impressive. It is very impressive. Now, Aakash, was dance in your family, or how did you come into it, and also with the traditional training, like growing up, being born and raised in UK, how was it that, like, when did you just, discover that this route of traditional Indian dancing was your calling, and how did you come into the sort of melding the contemporary dance and the traditional?
So I wouldn't say dance is in my family, but dance is in my soul. I really believe in reincarnation, or just the sense of like the evolution of energy. I feel like it's from a past somewhere which I'm not aware of, because anytime they played any music, I would dance. Anytime it came to picking up a glass, I couldn't just pick up a glass. And as a young child, I had to choreograph how I would pick up a glass. If my mom tried to open a door, I wouldn't allow her to just open the door. I had to explain to her how she should open the door.
Oh, really?
But my obsession,
oh my god,
oh wow,
was like immense. And I think what fascinated me was when you look at like from a religious point of view, like if you look at it from, if you separate let's say the Eastern religions from the Abrahamic religions, the roles of the gods slightly shift for me. So in the Eastern religion, especially in Hindu philosophy, gods dance. They're just as human and just as sort of superheroic in a way. And I found this fascinating. And I felt like there was something in my cells, in my blood, that when I danced connected to this mythology where the imagination was prevalent and strong, and the sense of mysticism and mystery was vast. So when I danced, or I saw classical dance on TV, it was the one that the gods danced for me. So as a young child, while most people were like admiring Spider-Man or blah, 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 these were my superheroes in a way. And this was my universe. So for me to dance Indian classical dance was like something connected to me and my roots, and something so far that I couldn't explain. The best way I can explain is when you put a fish in water, it swims. So that's what dance felt like for me.
Wow.
The air around me became oxygen, and the oxygen is what kind of what the inner environment of imagination provided for me. And why and how did I get into then contemporary and other forms of dance? Well, as a British Asian, there's two words there, British and Asian. I speak multiple languages. So I speak Hindi, Kathiawadi, Gujarati, English. So there's these, and when you're in a conversation at home or with friends, you can switch between languages to choose an expression that fits that occasion. But I found that in dance, all of a sudden, I wasn't able to express what I needed to feel to a different audience, because the audience around me no longer sat on a throne in an Indian court. They did not speak the language that I was dancing. So there was a disconnect from a lot of people other than aesthetically. So I felt like there's something really important about the contemporariness of now, like the sense of being in the now, that I wanted to explore contemporary dance so that it would allow me to communicate these same ideas and essence to a larger audience that don't belong to the geographical boundary that classical Indian dance comes from. So I felt like it was important as the word Kathak or Kathakar, it means storyteller. So I'm only telling stories of one half of my life, not the other half. And I feel like everyone needs to be able to connect into this world. So for me, contemporary then opened another door where I could tell stories that didn't have to specifically belong to my genetics. I felt like they could then belong to you or anyone else who watched it.
Right. Oh, that is so beautiful.
I have a question, especially because I mean, obviously I never did any kind of Indian traditional dance. I think it's an absolute outstanding art form, but I myself never did it. I started with classical ballet, and for me, I totally get what you say, and I kind of hear myself in what you say. I think every dancer does, by the way. I think really it's something that comes within it. It's somewhere in your system. And hopefully it finds its way into a studio, on the stage, and if you have the possible opportunity. But my question is, because for me, I love classical ballet because it's so straight and so, but at the same time, I experienced when I was very young that it limits my way of expressing myself, because there's a right and wrong. The leg here is right, the leg here is wrong. In contemporary ballet or in contemporary dance, there is no right or wrong. There's just like, you go beyond everything, which is very strict in ballet. And that was the first time I thought, I can go much further and I can express much more by using my body in a different way in the room and so on. So is that kind of, I don't know, did that came also into place, or is that a complete different thing?
I think the essence of what you say is exactly the same, but the way like a mantra. If you're praying or meditating, often you say a mantra, which is maybe 3 words, and you repeat and repeat and repeat, and it feels like it goes nowhere. But at the same time, you're trying to break a ceiling that is unbreakable. But the perseverance is in the reach above. So even classical dance, if your leg is meant to be here or here, and it feels impossible, the journey is in actually the exploration for me of trying to get there. Even if I'm never going to get there. And also it's like, I always say, when I go out, when I'm traveling the globe, normally we used to do like 48 countries in 6 months. So you go, you come back for a day. But that day home in this environment is what touches you to you and your essence. For me, classical dance is that. No matter how alien it can be at times and limiting, for some reason, it's like a mantra that you always come back to. Wherever.
And it's also, I think it's the outside world. It's wherever I am, like when I'm in New York, I go to the studio. The studio is always the dance floor, the bars, the piano. It looks different. I need time to adapt to a new room. I can't turn, for example. I'm like falling off, and I need 1 day or 2. But at the same time, I connect with myself, because it's like brushing my teeth. If I go to a studio, if I do my first plie, this is me. I feel more myself than in any other situation. And there, I mean, not that I don't feel myself walking out of a studio, which would be terrible in a way, but for me, it's like when I need to connect with myself, I take a class. And today, you know, I'm not working as a dancer anymore, but I still know my body knows what to do. And it's like, it has its own memory, it has its own history, it has its own story, and it's still more me than anything else. So that's another thing, you know, that I can go wherever I go. If I get lost, I go to the studio.
Do you find that, I mean, is it just my brain, or do you guys, I mean, I'm asking a very open question. Yeah. Do you constantly have a song that plays in your head? Like if you,
what, a song?
Yeah. Like if I say, if I'm quiet right now, is there a song playing in your mind or not?
Yeah, throughout the day, sporadically, depending on what I'm doing, you know, like there's going to be a song in my head, or somehow some song just pops up for no reason and it'll just keep playing in my brain. Or I will, like, for me, because again, music is sort of like you said, you know, like that I found my calling in music, even though I'm not practicing as a musician, but that's been my world. And so for me, it's like I will see something and like some sound or some music will come in my brain. Yeah, that's how it is for me.
I've not known a minute or a second where there hasn't been a song that doesn't, from the minute my eyes open in childhood. Try and figure out if that's normal. And the reason why I say that is dance has become so much, or was always so much a part of life, is even when I leave the studio, even when I disconnect from it, it has become part of the cellular structure of the body, the fabric that wear on me. Even if I disconnect from it, it's just there all the time. So it kind of like stays all the time with me, even if I've disconnected from it.
And it does stay, like, that's something I can say from my experience, because I stopped being a professional dancer a few years ago. I was very scared about stopping. And I decided to stop quite early because I thought, I want to decide. I don't want something, you know, I don't want to break a leg, or I don't want people not to hire me, whatever. And I decided to stop, and I was very, very, anxious actually, because I thought, what if I can't do without? And at one point I realized I'm not doing without. I'm still going to studio. I'm still dancing around. You know, I have, and you know, that's what you say. Even if I don't go to the studio anymore every day, once a dancer, always a dancer. And I felt like it was so, how do you say, like, I felt so relieved when I realized I don't have to go there every day, and I can do something else in my life. I can become a creative producer or whatever I do. Yeah. And I'm still always a dancer. This is something that never gets away. And the song thing, yeah, absolutely. I have that in a weird way. When someone says hello, I hear Adele, you know, this kind of stuff. It's really bad, but I have that. But also it's like music, like, I don't know, some music I heard, or I just start creating something. I don't know. It's like a little soundtrack. Hi,
Virginia.
Hi, I'm so sorry about this today.
It's okay.
The subway system was something going strangely today.
It's okay. I explained to them it's a New York subway system. You know, as a New Yorker, I know I had to explain on behalf of our city.
There we go. Oh, yes.
Well, thank you for coming on. So everyone, please welcome Virginia Johnson, who is the artistic director of Dance Theater of Harlem. And I was asking Aakash, if you guys knew each other. And I guess Aakash was saying maybe because you were in Harlem, working in Harlem at some point.
I mean, I performed James Brown at the Apollo. And I feel like somehow we've crossed. I was working with Diane Harvey.
Diane Harvey, maybe, yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Mickey Shepherd, is it Mickey Shepherd? Who was,
Yeah, the wonderful Mickey Shepherd. Oh, goodness.
Catch a breath, it's okay. No, actually just threw out this question about just whether there's music constantly flowing in our brain, you know. I mean, for him it is. I mean, for me, because I explained at the beginning of the show, is that I don't have a dance background. I have a music background. You know, I studied the piano when I was very young, went to a performing arts high school in New York City, LaGuardia High School. And then, and then what I knew, and this is a question for you guys as a dancer, because I think as a musician, right, you kind of know from the way you play, you know, quote unquote, like, are you talented enough? Like, you kind of know at an early age, like whether this is something you should really pursue professionally or not. But when does that happen in the dance world? Like you said, Jana, you didn't decide until
well, I'm just going to make this very short. I started when I was 14.
That's
Before
late.
I used to dance and I used to do pieces and I had all the main characters and my sister was just standing in the back and she could hold up stuff, but she was not allowed to perform. I did all the performing, but I was not educated, you know. And then when I was 14, my mom said, oh, you're sitting there like this. You have to go to the ballet. We have to straighten you up a little bit. And then I went to ballet class and that was it. I was like, this is what I want to do. This is me. I just felt like this is me. And then I came home and I said, I will become a dancer. And everyone was laughing at me. They said, yeah, you're 14. You will not become. And I was like, yeah, I will. Watch me. And so, you know, for me, that was it. I mean, I was just so sure about that this is what I want to do. And I didn't care what everyone had to say. It was just clear. So that was me.
Yeah.
Yes, I completely agree. You know, I think there's something deeply impractical about being a dancer. You are not thinking about the real world at all. You are in love. And this is the thing that gives you joy. And, you know, yes, you'd like a job, but that's really.
Oh, your sound just became slightly muted, Virginia.
Oh my gosh. You know what we're going to do? I'm going to go into another machine because there is a problem with my Zoom.
Oh, okay.
So here's another delay for you. I'm so sorry.
That is okay.
4 minutes.
Okay, that's okay. That's okay. Yeah.
So I felt for me, dance, it was never a choice. It was just there always. That's the only thing I knew how to do.
Right.
I think my level of obsession and possession.
Wow.
Was so profound that I couldn't think beyond that. Every opportunity of every second of every minute, for some reason, when the environment that I came from was so contrast to that family that I come from is so not from this zone. But I always say, what else was I meant to do? I didn't have any other choice. This is all I knew.
I have to say, I love the story that you just told with the door, because opening a door is just something like, I think 9 out of 10 people would never even, think about that this is a movement or this is something. It's just, they just open the door and they pass. So if you, I love that example.
I know, it's so beautifully said.
I have to say. If this is a movement, which is supposed to be more than just a movement, opening a door, it's like, this for me, says so much about you and movement it's fantastic. It's what you just said in a very great example, because it's just opening.
I used to put coins as a 3-year-old on the floor.
Oh, wow.
And all the coins were bodies. So I would say these are all dances and this is how they're moving. The first pattern would be here. The first thing would be like this. First, and then cross. So the whole thing, now I look back at it, didn't know the word, it was choreography.
Yeah, it was.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. This is really, really, I have to say, what I just said, when I did all
gives me just goosebumps. That just gave me goosebumps.
Yeah, it's really, it's absolutely beautiful. It's interesting because for some reason, I like in my second life, I studied philosophy because I love this. And this for me, I read this book some years ago where it was about, is choreography actually something natural that just some people, and this, what you just said, means there is not you don't go to a class and someone tells you how to choreograph. It happens because it's there. It is here. It is already here. Like this room probably is choreographed in a way.
Yeah, correct.
And you have this openness, you connect to this. A lot of people don't. Like my boyfriend is a musician. He has dancing for him is like out of space. This is like, he said for him, this is like, yeah, but like for you, it's natural. It's just something you do. Wow.
That is, and that's the thing. It's like, we were talking about this, Jana and I, is that our body is our instrument. right? And that people just, I think, as civilizations evolved, we forgot about that. Because dancing really is the most primitive form of art, even before music, right? Even before instruments were made. I mean, our body is our instrument. So like that idea, it should be natural, right? Like it should be natural to be choreographing your moves, because you're walking from A to B. You can walk it differently. But if you think about it, right, like deeply, that is in a way choreography. That is movement. That is movement in a way. It's just how you decide to cross from this side of the road to the other side.
And it has to do with awareness.
Yes.
That is the big difference, that you are aware what you do within the space you're in. And this is awareness to the outside world, but also to your, and this is something I think there are a lot of things you can learn in dance. No, you can learn how to do tondu, you can learn a lot of stuff, but this is something you can't learn. If people like this differs from amazingly talented girls and boys, or who don't become a dancer by the end of the day, because that is something which is you can develop it, you can educate it, but you can't learn it.
Right.
Hi, you're back.
Hi, you're back.
Hi.
But I guess that leads me to this question, is that if we already know, right, like movement for us, it's supposed to be the most primitive, most natural, our body is our instrument. So what happened throughout civilizations where we are now, where we are, where dance is it's almost so foreign in a sense, like there's so many people don't really know about it. And then now there's also like between, this question just keeps popping in my head, right? And I always put my dad out there as the perfect example. Like I remember he would, now all of these reality shows, like dance shows, like Dancing with the Stars. And my dad would always tell me, oh yeah, I love watching Dancing with the Stars. It's so much fun. It's so beautiful. Watch them move. And he felt, for someone who never trained in art, dance or anything, like he's not an artsy guy whatsoever, not even musical in any way, shape or form. But he was telling me, oh, I love to see the way they move, the way they dance together. And then 2 summers ago, I took my parents to see Yang Liping's, Under Siege with who? Okay. So, the story is as Chinese as you can get, because that story of Under Siege is already like commercialized in every shape and form. So it's a historical piece, and you studied it in history class, right? So my mom absolutely loved it, was bawling all over who. And we were on our subway home, from Lincoln Center. And then my dad just she's like blabbing about how great the whole piece was. The choreograph was beautiful, who was great. And then my dad was like, I didn't get it. That was the most funniest comment I ever heard. And I'm just like, what can we do to sort of convince someone like my dad to appreciate? It's just movement. It's not something like, it's not even sound. It's just body movement. What did we do in this period of like history of dance that people seem to be even more removed and more afraid of it, and this has been a question that's been twirling in my head ever since I really start to get involved with it, and I appreciate dance of all forms now, right? But then there's also the commercial aspects of it. Why are people more into the hip hop, the street dance, the flamingos, and then we become like this other side of like, okay, there's the contemporary dance, and then there's the ballet that then gets misunderstood or not misunderstood, and it's a question that I'll ask later on. It's a loaded question, but I wanted to throw it out to you guys from a non-dancer perspective.
I would say dance is, maybe for me personally, it's not primitive but primal.
Yeah.
So I would say it comes from a very raw place.
Yeah.
So in the time where there was no language, we would communicate via gesture.
Yeah.
So there was an instinctive importance of it, not realized as a form of dance, but as a form of communication. And then Maslow's hierarchy that you have basic food, water, shelter, blah, blah, blah. And at the top is spirituality and dance. Then as you go through the eras when palaces and culture and civilization evolved, you had, the art right at the top.
Yeah.
Now we are also in a society where there's a new thinking. We have a remote in our hand and we have our mobiles and Instagram and blah blah blah. If you don't like something within the first second, you can just swipe and it's gone. Our attention span is so minute now as a society that it's difficult to be able to engage with people as per se, unless it's something which is dazzling or blah blah blah. But I feel like that's a really important question that you kind of put out there about how do you engage with people like your father or my father or anyone's father, or,
All fathers.
All fathers.
Yeah, funny enough, you're like this kind of stuff, and like for me, this is one of the things when I create a choreography, I always used to say that I don't want it to be so contemporary that if my mother walked in, she wouldn't understand. I feel the basis of dance is about communication, and then I think elitism kind of takes precedence in any dance form. This is the style, this is the way it should be done, blah 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 blah. So it kind of becomes very niche, very elitist, which is fine. But when we're trying to connect and give people the experience of the beauty that it can give you, I feel we as artists have the responsibility and job to be able to take the form and make it so that it connects to people. Under Speech is a beautiful piece. Again, I was moved by watching him, but I can totally see my father going, that was good, but what happened? I didn't get it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's okay. Also, we've come to the point where, because we get to watch so much, we watch what we like. We've not also, as an audience, been able to develop a taste. And for dancers in particularly, we've had a lifetime of going to a theatre, getting to understand aesthetic, piece, work, movement, what we prefer, what we don't. And we can kind of figure out this sort of Morse code of dance in this world. But I feel it's really important for us also to be able to understand what it is people do connect to a little bit more. And I think for me personally, that's super, super important that my father walks into the theatre and says, yeah, not bad.
Also, the thing that is difficult in these times is that we're removed from our physical selves in so many ways. For me, dance is an experience. Having been a dancer, it's the experience of dancing that was really my love. But also in cultures around the world, where you have dancing as part of everyday life. And we really don't have that so much in New York. Now, there are very few places, especially with the pandemic, where the dance clubs are even not so much as they used to be. So people are removed from their physical experience of what it is to move. And so then dance becomes this intellectual thing. And then you try to figure out, is it good or what does it mean? But for me, even when I'm in a theater watching a dance, and Aakash, you're absolutely right, I've been looking at dance my whole life, so I know how to look at it. It is the experience of what I'm seeing in front of me, not the judgment of what I'm seeing in front of me that I carry away from the theater. That's what I'm looking for in a performance, is something that makes me have a thought, have a transformation in my experience. And I think that if we can create that space for audiences to not be in judging, good, bad, or understanding, intellectualizing, but perceiving, experiencing what it is that's in front of them. Now, this goes against all the rest of our training as consumers of art, to just say, what do I see in this? What do I feel in this? What's happening to me as this is happening? But if we can begin to bring that into the experience of our audiences, then they'll have ownership of their experience and they'll want to go, but I saw this, and this is because when you say, I hear all the time, I don't understand it. It's not to be understood, it's to be felt.
I think it's very, very interesting what you both said, because when you go to a modern art gallery, if I stand in front of a picture which is completely white and has a blue dot in the center, I don't get it. I'm like, okay, fine. I mean, I could have done the most often said sentence probably when
Yes.
it comes to modern art, and it's not that easy. I know that because but it's exactly it. Like I walk into a gallery and I think, okay, it has to do something. I need to experience something. Whether I like it or it makes me feel sad or irritated, whatever it does. And my dad, just going back to dads, he was very much into music. So he would understand why musicians rehearse all day. At the same time, he would say, so what do dancers do all day? And I was like, what do you mean? What do you think? They just jump on stage and do swan legs? I mean, they rehearse, they need to train their bodies in order to do all the crazy stuff you see. And then he was like, oh, right. So it is a kind of an effort. And I was like, yeah. And it's a short career. And it's like killing yourself every single day, mentally, physically, in a world which is very, very tough. Yeah. You start very young. But exactly like you two said, at one point I thought, so maybe he doesn't have to understand it at all. Maybe that even doesn't matter. So I took him to, I don't remember, it was a performance. It was a contemporary performance of something. And I said, well, just watch and just try not to understand, exactly like you said, just tell me out. And then he sat there and he was watching. And then afterwards said, so how do you feel? How do you feel? How does it make you feel? And he was like, oh, it got to me in a really weird way. And I was like, see, there you go. That's it. That's all, it's all. And now we talk because your daughter is a dancer, and I'm telling you, this is really a hell of a job I'm doing. So because I need you to understand that this is hard work to put that on stage. So, but at the same time, it's exactly what you say. And I think sometimes, I don't know, I feel like in Berlin, I live in Berlin, so Virginia, I don't know if you, so here, there could have been done more towards the audience, where you really try to connect with your audience in different ways, not just go to the theater, but maybe also go different places and go to the clubs, use them as a stage, what they already do, kind of, the Staatsballett. But it could be done more, because you have to connect with the people, and they will not end up in a theater at the moment. They will not go. It's not going to happen.
Mm.
Yeah.
One of the things that was really useful about this pandemic situation that we're still finding ourselves in is when the theaters were closed and it wasn't possible to do the work that we had to do, but we still had to connect to audiences. Yeah. And we had to use this damn thing called Zoom to make that happen. It was, we did class at Zoom. We did special audience engagement programs. We did conversations about what the dancers are thinking and how. So we're bringing people into what's happening inside this. When before the pandemic, you bought your ticket, you went to the theater, you came away, and your experience of the dance was just the very thing that's happening on the proscenium, just like another screen, but it's three-dimensional. But with the pandemic, we use that time to start to unpeel some of the things that are behind what makes dance happen, what the experience of dancing is. And, I think that that's something that we need to be doing continually, even now that the theaters are opening, because we need to have people, I'm going to use the word respect, like your father saying, well, what do dancers do all day? Well, this is what we do all day, and this is how it works.
Yeah, hello.
Respect a little bit the depth of the work that we're doing, but also give them some entry points to the work that we're doing, so that they cannot say, it's just patterns or reflecting music.
Just to jump on that. So what would you say, both of you, is that the biggest challenge, or what would be the biggest challenge for dance, like especially including the time we're coming from? Because I agree that, it gave me the chance to go back to ballet at home because everyone was online, and I loved it. I was like, oh God, I can take a class at home, which was great. But so what is that the biggest challenge, or if not, what would be the biggest challenge right now for dance? Maybe there's not one, two.
The biggest challenge is TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, GTA, you name it. Now, most, like in the summers when I was a child, the roads would be packed full of kids. Summer holidays, everyone was playing all sorts of games. Now it's empty because everyone has their little world right in front of them.
Right.
Oh, okay.
This here has become a barrier to the real world and outside world. I think what we represent is, as you said, Virginia, experience.
Yeah.
I think we represent experience of life and that sharing of that experience. And this represents illusion. So in the world of escapism, the problem is everyone wants to escape and go anywhere they want with this little device and here. And what we are trying to kind of do is take them to use this device that they have and their own experience into a different world. But this takes effort. And I think it starts off from a very young age. And every time there's a funding cut, it's always the arts cut from school. I mean, the interaction between the physical body and the experience this physicality gives you to the environment around you, it's got so limited now. You know, now your homes are heated, we have comfortable beds, life is so comfortable like it's never been before. Why would anyone want to put them through themselves through pain? Unless we make them realize, or if there is a way to penetrate this screen that has been created, that actually this is what you're here for, to use yourself as a canvas to write your story of life. A beautiful message came to me today. Don't just follow your story, direct your life. So it was about some kind of message came to me. Don't just follow your story, direct your life. Basically, in the sense of, I think we have to open ourselves to be able to find a direction in life or connectivity. And somehow I think it's really difficult to kind of connect to this new world because it's so different, unless somehow the medium of what we do is embraced into the medium that they use. I think that's where there could be a possibility of.
Right.
Ooh, and how would that be? What would that mechanism be?
That's what we're all trying to figure out. Because
yes.
See, this is why we gather, right? We gather with these questions that hopefully we can come back or little ideas that we can go back and then come back with these different ideas. I mean, again, like, you know, we don't necessarily have to have the answers, but it is important to question these, you know, to question these issues and to really bring them to the forefront, to really think about it, you know, because we are living in a time where actually no one really has the answers for anything. We're all experiencing the same thing, but we have to be in a space where we can talk about it and to respectfully understand the differences and the challenges and to listen to and say, you know, what can we do? Go back, or maybe someone has shared something that you could say, oh, you know what, now we can go back and implement it, right? And to spark some ideas.
Actually, to not to answer, but there is something which comes to me. Now we have so much technology that actually it's very advantageous when you're performing, when you want to make it imaginative.
Yes.
Like your piece called Murmur, which I have a lot of technology. So I have 20 fans around me. And it's about dyslexia, the piece, because I have dyslexia. And there's paper that constantly flies around me. And there's like these starlings, these birds projected onto them. And it creates this murmuration. So it looks like a dyslexic person's environment where letters warp and change and shift. And this wouldn't have been possible for me 20 years ago. And then to go into that world of imagination where actually it can be quite fascinating, where all of a sudden this world of movement feels appealing. I think sometimes it's hard to let go of the past. I think we shouldn't ignore the past and the hard work that our, the people who've laid the foundations for us have done. But I think it's also, I'm one of those who's guilty of resisting a bit, that we should maybe open a little bit the path to the world with technology without taking the soul out of it. For me, the most important thing I would love to retain is the soulful aspect of dance movement. And if that can kind of evolve and reincarnate into this world with technology, I'm happy, even if I'm not comfortable with it, to go into that world and actually then go into the world of the imagination with young children. And I honestly feel that the systems, as in our education systems, have to have more interaction with kids from a younger age, the seed be planted. Like with this world, let it be in their world, but let it be planted, not angst out because we haven't got funding.
Right, totally, yeah.
So, I think that there's something really, you said imagination, and that is really just, that's the the core of what art does. It opens it up, it makes it possible. And it feels today that when we have the devices, that and you mentioned also comfort. We have this here. It's all there. There's nothing for you. You don't need to imagine because it comes to you. All of this amazing stuff comes to you.
It's already curated for you.
Exactly. And you see amazing acts of imagination on these devices. And so you don't personally feel the compelled. So there's something a little passive about this moment that we're receivers. And yet, being of so many generations before you guys, the world wasn't invented yet when I was there. And we had to aspire to inventing a world. Well, we live in a very well invented and glamorous and compelling world. And so what is the impetus for invention? What is the impetus for imagination, for young people, for this generation of people who are receivers? And I think, for Jana, that is an obstacle that we need to figure out. What is, where's the spark? What is the thing that will make me go, well, there's that, but I could do, what is the thing that will make me go, let me put this down and move across the room? What is that spark? Where is that going to come from? Can it come from this device? Should we be actually employing it, as you say, to further our work, not see it as an obstacle, but as a tool for bringing people in? Is there some way to do that?
Right.
But I think there are two sides to this. I mean, at one point, we had this in other conversations where, like someone in, I don't know, Taiwan, all of a sudden could watch Bolshoi ballet. In the normal world, this might have not been possible because of traveling, because of money, because of, all that stuff. So all of a sudden, it does open doors. Mm-hmm. At the same time, it's still a screen. It's not the same. It's not like sitting in a theater, smelling the stage, smelling everything, but also I feel like, I don't know if you have the same impression. I feel like when it comes to music, for example, in Germany, when I look at the top 20, I hardly know any of the artists, and I don't want to, because it's all like weirdo sound stuff, and it's not very well done. Whereas the real music, like a real band, just a real band on stage, no dancing, no lights, no nothing. And I feel like there is a shift happening right now where people are asking more for the real stuff again, because they're and it's like, sometimes it has to go to a certain extreme in order to go to kind of, I don't know, go back to a bit more reality, like models, for example. They became skinny as hell. They fell off stage because they couldn't walk anymore. And all of a sudden now they look a bit more healthy and a bit more. So maybe it's exactly, this, that we should not, ban this device, because it does have a lot of stuff for us. As you said, both of you said, I mean, you both pointed out a few things. But at the same time, I think the reality about movement and about dance and about exploring yourself with people, sitting in a theater, watching a performance, maybe that's something we have to point out. Like, if I would be a marketing strategist, I'm not at all. I would say, so that might be your USP, or what's it called? The reality about things. It's real. It's a real thing. I don't know. I have no idea how to do that now, by the way. I'm just saying. Right. I think that could be something we have to maybe put our focus on, even now, even more than before.
Reminds me a little bit of like, so I studied the last living courtesans of India. I have geishas in Japan. So it's a very complex world, and these courtesans would perform for the royals, for the kings, and they would send their children there to learn. The nobles would basically go to the courtesans in their salons, and the salons might be the size of this room. And these women were the largest tax-paying women in India. They were the first feminists. I mean, the list goes on. But the British also wanted to cut them out of the system so that they can take power and control of it. But in that environment, when I asked my gurus, the dance seniors, how were they? Because they knew more courtesans then. Now there's like a handful left and their doors are closed. Oh, those days were amazing. Oh, nothing compares to that. In those days, do this whole night, used to perform all night long. She would sit there, she would sing this kind of. So that magic we've not experienced.
Yeah.
We directly onto the stage. We weren't in a salon where there's a woman seducing her patron or talking about love to her patron this close. We didn't get that, but we experienced stage. And for us, it's like stage. What do you millenniums know about stage and live? It's us. So I think what we're saying over here, Jana, is this: it's very cyclical.
Yes.
Like it's a cycle, everything. Yeah. In each cycle has its own kind of niche in there. And sometimes it makes me laugh. Sometimes I think we worry so much what's going to happen about dance. It's because it's our attachment to it. But some little voice said inside me, don't you worry about dance. Dance will find its own way. You may not be here to witness it, but it will find its own. Just like it from the court of King's Courts to the salons to the proscenium stage. I feel dance, it's gone from there to stage to these phones to it will go somewhere else. I think sometimes that is just the trajectory, but I think as people who experienced it and felt what it has done to them, it's hard to let go also of that memory. And sometimes I think I wish you could take a part of my experience in life. That's all we're trying to say. I wish you could experience what I have experienced.
I think that's a very important point, because when it comes to my dad, so now we're back on dads again, I wanted him to experience that specialty about it. It was more like, it was not so much that, you're right, that I was worried that, he would have been one person out of a million, and who cares if he sits in the theater and watches a dance piece, but I wanted him to make that, to experience what I experienced. Not in the same way, because he would have never started dancing, not even at a wedding or something, not like he did, he was a mover, but that is the thing. I want people, I think it's something which is, it makes your life, even if it's just for a moment, so much bigger and brighter and everything. And I think that's exactly what you say. It's probably just that.
So maybe it's the messaging. Is it maybe perhaps the messaging that we've been sort of, I want to say promote, but maybe we've been trying to engage with our messaging in a wrong way, rather than, do you understand, like what you guys were saying earlier? It's about, I want you to experience, I want you to feel. Well, how do you feel about it? And maybe there's also this perception that to be a dancer, or even someone trying to be a dancer, right, that you have to fit a certain, your body has to be a certain type, you have to weigh a certain weight. And now that of course then takes out, anyone can be a musician if you're proficient and you practice long enough, right? But like with the dancer, now there's that extra level of like physicality. It's almost like I said, before you came on, Virginia, I was saying that, dance to me is really like sports. But Aakash says you're warriors. Dancers are warriors. But to be warriors, it really does take a certain physique. It's not just a mental. It's a physical. It's very physically, it's very abusive to one's body. And to put yourself through that, you gotta be able to get there. To a certain, like, mentally, it all has to fit. So is there even different levels? Like, how do you make this, that more approachable for people? They may not want to pursue this as a professional career, but how do they do this as something that they enjoy? Like I was telling Jana, I was like, musicians, like as Asians, you got to learn either the violin or the piano, right? I went the piano route, right? That's just, it's common knowledge. But like a lot of people, you learn music, they may not pursue it professionally, but somehow music stay with them throughout as they get older. It still stays with them. For me, I feel like dance is almost like, I grew up in New York, so I know like all the kids, I grew up with all my classmates. I chose music, but they decided to go dance. So they go into like dance, and then they go to their ballet classes, they have their recitals, but then past a certain point, it's almost like it drops off, right? It drops off, and then they no longer engage with it anymore. So my question is, because both Aakash and Virginia, both of your companies have this whole education and teaching components to it. And what are you guys doing within those educational side to make sure that, yes, you may not pursue this professionally later on, but how do you ensure that these kids foster enough love that even though they don't become dancers, they'll continue to go to the theaters to see a dance production? I think that's where, I think what you're saying, Aakash, is that planting that seed. How do you plant that seed so that it still is going to carry through as they get older, as they grow into adulthood and into later in their life?
By doing what we do.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the honest answer. Because I think sometimes we're also in a world where numbers are so important. How many followers are there on Instagram? Are you verified? Is it 2.1 million or 1.3 million? But what about the one person you may cross who's in your class that you say one word to that changes everything? And I think the intimacy of dance and the relationship in an intimate, we underestimate that. Sometimes it's easy to get carried away by how many, what's the mass number of it? But I think even in all the classes we have, so we franchise with a very big Bollywood company, which I used to be part of when I was younger. I think around the world, they have 100,000 students. So he's my teacher. And so in terms of numbers, God, when there's a show, there's like 1,000 of them on stage, But
Wow.
At one point, I was one of them who was 1,000, the person dancing. I might as well dance off stage in the wing. That's so, for me, it wasn't about how many of them, which I think is also important not to ignore. But I think what about the fact of the one or two individuals? So we have classes like in Coventry, Leicester, Birmingham, London. Here we have branches all over the place. Out of all of them, every class, the instructors do what they do best, which is to give energy in that moment, to interact with them as human beings. In that interaction, there may be one person who's had a really bad day at home or is having a really bad time overall in life. Sometimes you say one thing just as my instructor said to me. Those one or two words changed my life. That's all it took, one or two words. It wasn't even, 10 years of classes or 30 years of classes. It was just one or two words by an instructor who was in tune with life around them. So I think that we also underestimate. We think about how can we throw a rock to create a tsunami? But I say, how can we drop a pebble to create a ripple? Because a ripple will become its own tsunami.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. I think the other thing, and it's very much part of what Dance Theatre of Harlem is about. When Arthur Mitchell created this organization, he was not thinking about necessarily creating dancers. He wanted to have the young people in Harlem to have a chance to have a better life. And he knew that dance, it's transformative for so many reasons. Really, it was about discipline. It was about self-focus. It was about all the building blocks of success. He knew that you could have as part of as you train as a dancer.
Yeah.
So throughout this organization, the idea of why we exist and what we're doing is really about who is the individual and what can the individual bring to the world through this art. Now, it's not about making 100 ballet dancers here at all. It's about making 100 people who have a sense of themselves, a sense of possibility, a sense of imagination, but a sense that they can make a place in the world by strengthening themselves through this art form. Yes, some of them become dancers, some of them become doctors, but the important part of it is that there's an environment in which they can blossom, where they can find themselves and feel validated. You're so right. There's so much about dance that is punishing. It is hard on the body. It is hard on the spirit. You're only told, no, that's not good enough. It's very difficult to, unless you love it, to survive in this place. And so very few people feel that sense of attachment. that necessity to have this in their lives if they find that they're not going to be professionals. So one of the things that we do as part of our existence in our school, as the company and its education activities, is to let people understand that you have a voice and you have to learn how to use it. And by learning how to use it, then you can have a place in the world. Yeah. So it's stepping away from this idea of you're only successful if you become a professional. It's really, what can dance bring out of you as a person that you can bring to the world?
I totally agree with what both of you said. Again, I said that a few times already, but I do agree. So, and I just want to add one thing. I think ballet, like dance, ballet is challenging. So you really have to stay on, you stand in front of a mirror. So you start with like pliés and tendus. So, but if you don't go my teacher always used to say, if you don't go for a day, you can feel it. If you don't go for 2 days, the person next to you feels it. If you don't go for 3 days, everyone can see it. So this is the thing about ballet. You have to constantly be on it. Otherwise, you look at the mirror and you feel bad. You just feel stupid because your leg is not as high anymore. You feel shitty. You can't, you're not so stretched. So, and I think when you hit the age between, let's say, 12 and something 20, a lot of interests come in. Mm-hmm. You have a boyfriend, a girlfriend, or whatsoever. You have all of a sudden you want to go to the club, and it becomes more challenging because you really have to be on it. And I have a lot of friends who went, like, as you said, Cindy, they started ballet when they were young, and then they have this huge gap, but then they go back at a grown up, because all of a sudden they're like, oh, I can go to a studio. And it's, again, the challenge is new, because now they stand there and they say, this is challenging. This is not just doing something, it's your body. Like we use our body. We don't take any device. Oh yeah, well, we can. But normally, like, the instrument is the body. So you, like you said, you connect with yourself, you all of a sudden. And if you, I don't know, let's say pirouettes, you do one turn and you're like, oh my God, I just did one turn. And then all of a sudden, the next step is to do a double pirouette. And then you manage to do that. I mean, I remember, like, a friend of mine, she's 39. She came to me the other day and she said, you know what, I always admired you for what you did, but I understand even more how hard this is, because I just went back to ballet class for adults in the evening. And then next day she called me, she said, I just managed to do a double pirouette. And she was the happiest person on planet Earth. And she's definitely not becoming a dancer, and I thought, oh, this is interesting. Probably she had more things to feel good about at her job on that specific day or the day before. But the one thing that made her really happy was a double pirouette in a ballet class. And I thought, this is amazing. Yeah. And I think that's the spark. But you have to challenge, you have to experience it yourself. You have to go there. I mean, I don't know what you guys do. Like, the music is one thing, but I do dance around in my kitchen once in a while, and no one is watching. I don't care how it looks. It doesn't matter. But it makes me feel good. It feels good to move.
Yeah.
It makes me happy. And it just in a really weird way. It just makes me happy.
Yeah. Well, I do this, my nieces, when I was like, I would help babysit my sister's kids. And then, they always know as like the crazy Auntie Cindy, who's always doing these crazy dances. And they would look at me like, I'm entertaining you. Or like when my sisters try to change their diapers when they were still young, I would just like do crazy dances to distract them. But it's so natural, right? And you don't care. I'm totally not a dancer, but I love it. And, it's like dance and music. And it just...
But you know what? I just want to add one thing. There's this project, I think it's at the New York City Ballet, with the Alzheimer patient. They had... this is really interesting because they can hardly, Alzheimer's is a really, really very, very hard disease and very, but they started moving through movement. The people started remembering movements. They couldn't remember anything, not even their name. But all of a sudden, little choreographies managed to find their way through in this system. Oh my God. I was like, this is absolutely incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the thing, is like, how do, we should learn, right? It's about giving people the comfort to move their body. I think we've evolved as civilizations to a point where we're constantly being told that it's not really okay. And even as, religion evolved, civilization evolved, there's so many cultures that just don't encourage that. But it's the most, like you said, Aakash, it's the most primal. And we should be able to be comfortable with moving our body without being judged, whether it's professionally or just for fun.
Yeah, the sheer pleasure of movement.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
So few people have that experience, and if we could force them to have the experience.
And when you look, I don't know, when I go to the office and something great happens to whatever person, did you recognize that people start jumping around?
Yes.
They have, and it's not, well, that would not be considered ballet dance, of course, but they are dancing. This is dancing. This is what it does. If you receive something that makes you happy, your physical reaction is to jump around or to do movement.
Yes.
That's the natural reaction on something.
Someone asked me a question in the Middle East. Actually, I was in Abu Dhabi. About dance, and we feel like we're not allowed to, whatever it may be, some kind of question, which was about not being able to dance, or not allowed to dance, or it's not encouraged. So it was a question and answer in the classroom, and the subject was dyslexia, so it's very specific, and dance. So I said, she was sitting on the chair, and this man was also sitting. I said, when I see you, you're dancing to me. I said, the difference is I notice that you're dancing. You don't know that you're dancing. Why are you dancing? I said, if you put your hand here, what do you feel? I said, you feel your heart beating, your pulse. I said, if you listen carefully, what do you hear? I said, you hear your breath going in and out. Walking, what are you doing? You're walking to your own rhythm. What's happening around the world? You're tuning into the world around you. So I feel that dance is not just me going on stage or
Exactly.
Every person dances in their own way, in their own world, to their own tune.
Yes.
That's beautiful.
That is so beautifully said.
And bring that awareness to people's experience that they're already dancing. They don't have to think about going all the way to ballet. They can think about recognizing their physical experience of being on the planet.
That's when when you have people wherever, like I hear that so many times. Oh, I can't dance. Like you go to the club, you go to a wedding, and people would say, "No, not me. I can't dance."
Yes,
no,
exactly.
No one cannot not dance. It's not possible.
Yes.
Like you said, like everything you do is already movement. It's just you just don't. They expect themselves to look like Britney Spears when they go on a dance floor. Well, okay, consider that dance. That might become a challenge, but that's not dance. This is Britney Spears doing a choreography to her own songs or whoever,
Yeah.
But it's exactly that. It's like everyone can dance because everyone has a body and a physique, and no matter what they do, it doesn't matter.
Exactly. So well said. Well, this leads to one of our segment we have on our show every time. It's called Underrated or Overrated. And because it is dance, we are in the holiday season. So my question for you guys is, do you guys think the Nutcracker, is it overrated or underrated?
Oh, I'll jump in for a tiny second because it is overexposed. I think that as a work, of historical fact, it has some amazing qualities. It has some also pretty awful qualities. It is something that is now relied on to mean this time of year, and I think that's a huge mistake. Yeah. So in that sense, it's overrated. Yeah. It is not worth shutting out all other interpretations of this time of year, the winter equinox, all the things that are part of our world that we just push aside because we can celebrate with Nutcracker. I try really hard to have a Nutcrackerless season as much as my dancers are all, we don't do Nutcracker here, and and we're off, and so they're all very excited because they get to guest as the Sugar Plum and the Cavalier. And so my office is right next to the studio, and so during the break, all I hear is Grandpa. It's beautiful music, but no, I don't want to hear it. Overexposed.
Yeah. Aakash, your thoughts?
I've never seen the Nutcracker, so there's probably a reason why I've never seen it, and it's exactly what Virginia, I think, has kind of expressed, overexposed. I think it kind of it's ingrained in memory of that time of year, but I think it also holds a lot, and I think it also kind of divides as well.
Yes.
Nutcracker belongs to a particular place and blah blah
Yes.
blah blah blah. I feel like unless you introduce that there's other aspects of Christmas with all different colors, shapes, sizes, never gonna change. So maybe it's nostalgic for a lot of the people, but for me, I haven't even gone to the doors when Nutcracker is on.
Well, I agree with but again, I agree with what you said. Absolutely. I saw this documentary actually, like beginning of the year. There's this documentary about the Nutcracker at the New York City Ballet where they focus more on the community part, where the children, they train and rehearse for a long time and it's there. So from that point of view, I would say the Nutcracker absolutely has a reason, because it's a lot of children involved and it creates this community and it creates this, they all go towards this one goal where they become the little me's and whatever they become on stage. Me personally, I find the music absolutely annoying. I can't, if this comes on the radio, and it does come here a lot, I have to turn it off. I can't listen to this anymore, especially all the dances and all these little bing, 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 bing. It's terrible. And I don't like to watch it either. And I do love, I love Giselle, for example. It's one of my favorite ballets ever. But Nutcracker, I just can't go. I saw it once and I absolutely hated it. And I can't, like, it was a long time ago. And I like what you said, I think probably that's maybe why, like on a very subconscious way. But I was absolutely, it's too tacky, and it's like all this hoppling around, and then it's this huge Christmas tree where, like, as you said, so this is one, for me, it's not for me. So absolutely overrated.
Yeah, I think it's
century, and it's the 21st century now. Why are we still being made to listen to this?
They do it here in Berlin. There was this huge discussion last week on the radio that I listened to because there was no music involved, where they talked about all the dances, that this is discriminating and they should change the choreography because I don't know. And I was like, but why not change the program? Why? You don't have to just do something else. Don't change that particular thing within the Nutcracker. Just do something else.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's here. It's on. It's
because you can't avoid it anywhere you go during the holiday season.
Everywhere.
There. And then,
the important thing, though, that we have to recognize is that, tradition is comforting.
Yeah.
Whether it's tradition or non-tradition, we need something that is familiar, that we can go this time of year. It's something that makes me feel, I remember when I was, that's part of how.
Can't it be? Maybe that's a stupid question. I have that with Bach, the Christmas oratorium. I listened to it yesterday, and it gives me goosebumps every year because it's this phenomenal. And I'm like, why does it have to be the Nutcracker? Seriously, can't it be something
I think our mistake, I'm sorry, Jana, to talk over you. I think our mistake is that we have become so dominated by tradition at the same time that we did not begin new traditions. We should be creating the not nutcrackers, but the holiday, the celebrations that our children and their children will be delighted to carry forward over time. We've taken other people's prizes and made them our own, and we haven't replaced them. And that's where we're kind of trapped in Nutcracker because there's nothing to replace it. And our job right now is to be creating those things that are appropriate and are full of joy and beauty and warmth and positive spirituality that we need in this time. And we can't rely on those because they're old and they don't relate to this moment.
I agree.
Because there is also this issue about this. It's a very Western colonialism tradition. That has made its way not just to the Western cultures, but also out into the East, where Christmas is not a spiritual holiday, but it's a commercial holiday. But now it becomes commercial holiday. Nutcracker has to be part of that commercialism during that time of the year. So now you have people now out in Asia who's getting dressed up and fancy, thinking that Nutcracker has to be part of that experience, right? And so this is why I think also it's a little, like you said, you know, we got to create that new tradition.
But you know, honestly, what it does is it does underline the commercial side of like our society, because everyone I know, like I like 8 out of 10 people don't even go to church. They don't see the Christian side of Christmas at all. So this whole Nutcracker thing actually underlines that very commercial side of this tradition, which is not a good thing, to be really honest, because it takes away the Christian side of it, if you want to look at the Christian
really
side,
look at,
you know.
yeah.
So this whole thing is just completely should be off.
Akash, you need to create something. You know, you need to create something that we're going to replace.
Yes, that's it, great. Hello 2022. No pressure, but
consider Virginia said trapped in Nutcracker, and I was like, that's a title actually.
Trapped in Nutcracker.
It's gonna be
good.
Response.
You still have a year.
Yeah, I'll do it. Let's do it.
There you go. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Exactly. Well, we're out of time, but we're so grateful. Thank you. This has been such, it's goosebump all the way around. You know, I've learned so much more about the discipline of dance, the inside of dance, the mentality of dance, the spirit of dance. And really, I think we should just all encourage ourselves just to move whenever possible. Really, and not be ashamed. Really, thank you both. It's been such an honor.
Thank you so much. Also from my side, absolutely fantastic.
Yes,
Thank you. Sorry to have made you wait so long.
It's
was
okay.
Really fun.
It's okay. Thank you all for tuning in, and look forward to seeing you guys again in our next episode. Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.